In the humid air of a 1720 Parisian morning, a man named John Law stood at the center of the world, watching as the very fabric of reality began to tear. For months, the streets of the Rue de Quincampoix had been choked with people from every social class dukes, rubbing shoulders with servants, all screaming for a piece of paper that promised a share of the magical riches of the Mississippi. They believed they had finally conquered the oldest human limitation: scarcity. Gold was heavy, rare, and difficult to move, but Law had convinced an entire nation that wealth was not a metal found in the earth, but an idea printed on a page. As the sun rose that day, the illusion reached its peak, with the price of shares skyrocketing to 20 times their original value. People felt like gods, convinced that the old rules of math and gravity no longer applied to them. But in a quiet corner of the city, a few men began to realize that there were more papers in circulation than there was gold in the vaults to back them. The first cracks appeared not in the banks, but in the hearts of the believers. Within weeks, the fever broke, the paper became worthless, and the people who had felt like millionaires on Tuesday were starving by Friday. This was not the first time humanity had fallen for the ghost of easy money, and it certainly would not be the last. Because the story of our economy is not a story of numbers, but a story of a recurring biological glitch in the human brain. While the ruins of the Mississippi scheme were still smoldering in France, the same madness was crossing the English Channel to infect the South Sea Company in London, proving that distance and culture are no barrier to a good delusion. We like to think of ourselves as rational creatures who learn from the mistakes of our ancestors, yet history suggests we are trapped in a loop. The fundamental reason we keep falling for the same economic illusions is that our brains are still wired for the savannah, not the stock market. We are biologically programmed to seek out patterns, to follow the herd for safety, and to believe that if a resource is growing quickly today, it will continue to grow forever. This primitive survival instinct, which once helped us find ripening fruit or migrating herds, becomes a lethal trap when applied to a modern financial system. When we see our neighbor getting rich without effort, a deep, ancient part of our psyche overrides our logic. We don't see a bubble. We see a survival opportunity we cannot afford to miss. This psychological vulnerability creates a bridge to the first great illusion, the belief that this time is different. It is the 4 most dangerous words in the history of finance. In the 1840s, it was the British railway mania. Investors were told that the steam engine had fundamentally changed the laws of physics and commerce, making old valuation models obsolete. In the 1920s, it was the dawn of the consumer age, where automobiles and radios promised a permanent plateau of prosperity. In the late 1990s, the internet was supposed to have abolished the business cycle entirely. Each generation convinces itself that some new technology or some new financial innovation has finally broken the chains of history. We want to believe that we are the special ones, the generation that finally figured out how to turn lead into gold. While the technology changes, the humans using it do not. The same fear and greed that drove a Dutch merchant to trade his house for a single tulip. Bulben's 1637 are the same emotions driving a retail trader to bet his life savings on a digital coin today. As these technological wonders blind us to the risks, we often find ourselves drifting into the second great illusion, the mirage of infinite liquidity. We start to believe that there will always be someone else ready to buy from us at a higher price. This is the logic of the greater fool theory, a silent pact we make with ourselves. We know deep down that the price is irrational, but we tell ourselves we are smart enough to sell before the music stops. This creates a collective hallucination where the value of an asset is no longer tied to its utility, but to its momentum. While the momentum is upward, the illusion is beautiful. It creates a sense of community, a feeling of being part of a secret movement that the old guard just doesn't understand. But liquidity is like the tide, goes out much faster than it comes in. When the realization hits that there are no more fools left to buy, the exit becomes a narrow doorway that everyone tries to run through at once. The very people who were your comrades in the climb become your enemies in the descent. While the individual is blinded by greed, the institutions that are supposed to guard us often fall for a different version of the same trick. This leads us to the illusion of the perfect model. In the lead-up to the 2008 financial crisis, the world's most sophisticated banks believed they had used mathematics to eliminate risk. They took thousands of risky mortgages and bundled them together, convinced that through the magic of diversification, they could create something perfectly safe out of something fundamentally broken. They built complex formulas that looked brilliant on a computer screen, but failed to account for the most unpredictable variable of all, human panic. They treated the economy like a physics experiment, where every action has a predictable reaction, forgetting that the economy is actually a psychological drama. When the housing market began to wobble, the models didn't just fail, they acted as an accelerant, forcing automated selling that turned a localized problem into a global catastrophe. The failure of these models reveals a deeper truth about how we perceive wealth. We have been conditioned to see money as a fixed, objective reality, but in truth, it is the ultimate social construct. This brings us to the most persistent illusion of all, the belief that currency has intrinsic value. For centuries, humans clung to the gold standard because they needed to believe their money was anchored to something physical and unchangeable. But when the world became too complex and the need for credit too great, we moved toward fiat currency, money backed only by the promise of a government. This transition didn't change our behavior. It only changed the scale of our illusions. Now, instead of hunting for gold, we watch the balance sheets of central banks. We believe that as long as the numbers on a screen keep moving, the system is healthy. We have traded the physical illusion of metal for the digital illusion of data. This shift toward digital abstraction has made it even easier for the old cycles to repeat. When money is just a number on a smartphone, the emotional weight of spending or losing it begins to vanish. We are entering an era of gamified finance, where the line between investing and entertainment has blurred. This environment is a playground for the same predatory patterns that ruined families during the Great Depression. The illusion today is that complexity equals safety. We are told that decentralized finance, algorithmic trading, and high-frequency systems have made the market more efficient. But efficiency is not the same as stability. In fact, the more efficient a system becomes, the more fragile it often is. Like a forest where every tree is perfectly spaced and of the same species, it looks orderly until a single spark turns the entire thing into an uncontrollable fire. As we look at the landscape of the modern world, we can see the shadows of John Law and the Mississippi Company everywhere. We see it in the wild swings of the crypto markets, in the astronomical valuations of companies that have never turned a profit, and in the surging debt levels of global superpowers. We are living through the same fever that gripped Paris in 1720, just with faster processors and better graphics. The names of the assets have changed, but the dialogue is identical. The same arguments about new eras, the same dismissal of skeptics as being out of touch, and the same desperate hope that we can outrun the bill when it finally comes due. We fall for these illusions because the alternative is to accept a world of limits, a world where growth is slow and where wealth is the result of decades of labor rather than a lucky strike. The tragedy of the economic cycle is that each generation must learn the lesson for itself. We cannot inherit the wisdom of those who lost everything in the past, because our own greed tells us that we are smarter, more informed, and more technologically advanced than they were. We look back at the people who bought tulips or South Sea shares with a sense of superiority. Yet we are currently building the ruins that the next generation will study with the same amused detachment. The economic illusion is not a bug in the system. It is a feature of the human condition. It is the price we pay for our ambition and our desire to build a future that is better than our past. We are currently standing at a crossroads where the old world of physical assets and the new world of digital abstractions are colliding. The air is thick with the same excitement that preceded every major collapse in history. Signs are there for those who care to look, hidden behind the jargon of modern finance and the roar of the 24-hour news cycle. We are being asked once again to believe that the rules have changed, that debt doesn't matter, and that wealth can be created out of thin air if we only have enough faith in the system. But the laws of economics are as stubborn as the laws of physics. Eventually the accounts must be settled, and the value must return to its source. The illusion can last for years, even decades, but it can never last forever. As we move deeper into this century, the stakes are becoming higher than they have ever been. Our financial systems are now so interconnected that a tremor in one corner of the globe can trigger an earthquake on the other side. We have built a cathedral of credit on a foundation of human psychology, and we are constantly surprised when the ground begins to shake. Understanding these illusions is the only way to protect ourselves. It's not by finding a better model, but by recognizing the flaws in our own nature. We must learn to see the pattern before it completes itself, to recognize the familiar scent of a bubble before it bursts, and to remember that in the world of money, anything that seems too good to be true is usually the beginning of a disaster. The story of money is the story of us. It is a mirror reflecting our highest hopes and our deepest fears. As long as we are human, we will continue to chase the mirage of the shortcut, and we will continue to be shocked when it disappears as we get close. The machines might be faster, and the markets might be global, but the heart of the matter remains the same. We are still the same people who stood in the Rue de Quincampoix, clutching pieces of paper and dreaming of a world without gravity. The next illusion is already being crafted, and the next generation is already lining up to believe in it. The question is not whether the cycle will continue, but whether you will recognize it the next time it knocks on your door. Today you are standing in that same Parisian morning, deciding whether to buy into the dream or step back and look at the reality. The tools are different, but the choice is identical. History doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. And the melody of the economic illusion is the most seductive song ever written. To hear it is human, but to survive it requires a memory that stretches back further than the last fiscal quarter. Would you like me to research a specific historical economic bubble to see how its patterns compare to today's market trends? Join us in the Money History Lab by subscribing for more stories behind the money.